In this video, we will discuss one of the most important Linux commands there is. It's one you'll use a lot. It's the ls command. ls produces a file listing. So if I just type ls, I get a listing of the files in my home directory. It's just that. It's a listing of all the files and directories in my home directory. This is not all the contents of my home directory. There's actually some things that ls isn't showing me. I can add an argument or a flag, the terms are both used, to the ls command. The standard way of specifying an argument to a Linux command is a minus sign, a hyphen. Usually it's pronounced minus. This command that I've just typed is ls minus a. And the A in this case stands for all. And it says, show me all the files, not just the ones you want to show me by default. You see, I get a much bigger listing. You notice all the new files, if you take a look at this, everything that showed up new is preceded by a period. We call that period a dot. We're used to that in domain names and URLs and that kind of thing. Same nomenclature is used. We have dot bash underscore history, dot bash underscore logout, dot cache, etc. It's just a convention, a standard way that Linux does things. A lot of configuration files, preferences files, that kind of thing. Things that you don't normally need to see. It's nice if they're just sort of out of the way. Those files begin with a dot, and ls and also the GUI file browsers won't show those to you by default. They're sometimes referred to as hidden files or dot files, but with ls-a, we can say, show us all those files. Also, we see in here are two special directory names we talked about. We have dot and dot dot. Just as a reminder, dot is a name that means this directory, the directory that we're looking at. And dot dot means the parent directory, the directory one level up in the tree. By default, ls lists things alphabetically. We start from A and we go to Z. I can reverse that notion by adding a flag minus R for reverse. If I do that, I go from Z to A. Pretty straightforward. I can also list by time. Now you see here, I created a file called new file. That file was created today. So it comes first. It's from newest to oldest. The oldest thing here is my desktop. For a directory, the definition of the time it was modified is the last time something was added, removed, or renamed in the directory. New file is a file that was added, like I said, just today, so that it would be new. And desktop happens to be the least recently modified thing in my home directory. Now I can combine these arguments. If I want to go instead of from newest to oldest to newest, I can combine the two flags. And generally speaking, when we combine flags, we don't need a separate minus sign for each one. We can just add them all behind one minus sign. So I can say ls minus tr. Now I've gone from oldest to newest on my listing. You don't need to combine them. I can separate them and do both with the minus sign, and exactly the same thing happens. Why might you want to mess with the sorting order? It doesn't make a lot of sense in a small directory like this, but in a very large directory, it can make a lot of difference. Maybe I'm interested in the things at one end of the list or the other, especially if I'm sorting by time. Let's take a look at a big directory. This is one of the system directories. It contains a lot of programs in it. User bin, it's one of those well-known directories, so we often don't say slash, but the user bin directory. There's a whole lot of things in here. In fact, you can see I pretty much see X, Y, and Z at the end of the list. It's a two-column format, so I'm getting the M's as well. The N's and the O's and the P's are off my list, and of course the ABCs are off my list. Maybe I'm looking for an A. I can do an ls-r of user bin. Now my A's come first. I'm still at the M's on the other end of the list, because that's right about in the middle. The A's are coming now at the end of the list, but we have a few other guys that are coming after the A's, so normally they would sort before the A's. You can see that numbers and, in fact, punctuation marks, most of the punctuation characters, there may be some exceptions, sort before the alphabet and the numbers. The numbers come first, but even before that are punctuation marks. That little square bracket is actually a command. It's an unusual command, but it is actually a command. So if we add A to the mix, when looking at our directory, we see our friends dot and dot dot. Again, a reminder, they are there in every directory. ls by default shows us the current directory. Also, we can specify any other directory, and just like we did with the cd command, we can specify that with an absolute path or with a relative path. We will come back to ls in another one of these videos, but for now, this does conclude our basic introduction to the ls command.